sometimes when it's a kiddie party, you just gotta slide on in there, you know? What up, Ho Biscuits? It's your girl Skitten, back at it again. First and foremost, I hope you guys are doing well. I hope you guys are staying safe and sanitized. I recently decided to start rewatching Supernatural. First of all, to be clear, never finished it. I think it made it through to maybe like halfway through 11. I like really could not stand Crowley's mom. So I quit, and then just recently I decided that I would start it over again. And when I tell you that I thought I had a pretty good recollection of what happened in the early seasons of Supernatural, especially because I refer to the first 5 seasons of Supernatural as literally like perfect television, like my perfect TV show, I forgot so much. I hella forgot. I completely forgot about the whole yellow-eyed demon storyline. And another observation, did the casting directors even kind of try to find people that looked alike? Or did they really just work off of vibes? Like, you know, Jared Padalecki and Jensen Ackles just had like top-notch chemistry, and they're like, yep, these guys are brothers. They literally look nothing alike, nothing like their dad, nothing like the lady that they picked to play their mom. But you know, they mesh really well together. So those are the brothers. That family don't look nothing alike. There's all kinds of recessive genes activated there. Anyway, I don't know if I have any Supernatural fans amongst my subscribers / regular viewers, but just know, like, we in here, we out here, all of that. Anywhoosins, kind of in theme of the whole Supernatural thing, today we are here to watch Overly Sarcastic Productions. This particular video is Fables and Folktales Shippeitaro. Never heard of that in my life, but since it is Fables and Folktales, you know it's gonna be your girl Red, my favorite, my woman crush every day. I'm pretty excited to see what this video has in store for us, so without further ado, let's go ahead and get started.
Have you ever had that thought, you know, man, I would thrive so much in crisis.
No.
You know, the only problem is the world is all safe and simple and stuff. But if circumstances just conspired to put me in an action hero situation, I would do great. I bet if I was trekking across a beautiful, suspiciously New Zealandy landscape with a crew of true companions on a perilous quest, I'd have a much easier time getting them into our dang weekly board game nights.
No. Just to be clear, I have never thought that. When I was younger, I used to fantasize about like running away and making my living like in the desert, but that's because I read that book Hatchet. And you know, like that kid survived and was like mostly fine or whatever. So I was like, I could do the same thing, not really understanding that desert landscape is completely different than landing in a fucking forest. But also, no, I think people would murder me very quickly because I would just bitch and complain so much. What do you mean there's no hot water and I can't take a shower? What do you mean you want me to eat this food from a can unheated? What are you talking about? What do you mean there's no toilet paper? No. In fact, they wouldn't even have to kill me. I would just let whatever situation is threatening my life, I would just let it happen because I don't do well with suffering. I'm not good at it. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry.
Archaeology would be so much more fun if it actually involved dodging traps and punching Nazis on moving tanks. I'd kick ass at that. I hate calling my doctor and my bank because the true test of my bravery would be using kung fu to fight a crew of ne'er-do-wells in an exciting action set piece on top of a moving train. Now, of course, that little voice is not to be trusted because it belongs to your inner storyteller, the part of you that once upon a time played sword fights or dragon slaying or Star Wars on the playground before eventually maturing into game nights, improv comedy, theater, writing, or really any other creative outlet for that beautiful little what-if instinct. It's a vital part of you, but it's not always the best at reading the room or accepting that the real world does not operate on the logic of a story. So it's kind of funny to encounter a fantastical folktale where the protagonist has the exact same struggle. Today's story is a Japanese tale first documented in English in the late 1800s by Mrs. T.H. James in a children's picture book, and then later featured in Andrew Lang's The Violet Fairy book in 1901.
I have probably read this then. So if there's like the Violet Fairy book, Green Fairy book, Brown, Yellow, like all of those, and I have them in a box because they're so old. They're like originals and they're so old and they're like falling apart and I didn't want them to get messed up, so I put them in a box. But I've probably read this then, because the Violet Fairy book was one of my favorite compilations.
Of several compilations of folktales he collected from around the world. However, unlike in the similar case of Tokoyo and the Sea Monster, the story of Shippeitaro is also documented in Japan, and in fact has several different localized versions, meaning this story was definitely not made up by some proto-weeb in 1800s Europe, which is a relief. You always gotta check these things. Anyway, the story of Shippeitaro begins with a nameless young man leaving his village in search of fame and adventure, this just being the way things were done back in folklore Japan. But he finds himself almost quixotically frustrated at the lack of adventure opportunities. Despite living in a world chock-a with yokai, he can find no monsters to slay, no damsels to rescue, and overall nothing that would allow him to finally display his true heroic potential. After all, it's hard to be a hero in a world with no easy villains. But his luck changes one day when he reaches the foothills of an extremely scary-looking mountain that practically screams, "Here there be plot hooks," and he starts hiking his way up through dense underbrush and shadowy trees. Unfortunately, the mountain of plot hooks turns out to be a huge pain in the ass, and he fails to find a way out of the forest before nightfall, only managing to locate a large stone shrine which he takes shelter in for the night. But at midnight, a sudden horrible sound wakes him, and he sees that outside the shrine are a truly staggering number of cats, which is probably a little disheartening if you're on the hunt for extremely dramatic adventure. But these folkloric cats are not the cute and cuddly kind. Japanese folklore has a habit of highlighting the sinister and untrustworthy nature of the cat, and this tale is no exception. No. These cats are partying up a storm under the light of the full moon, dancing and caterwauling and overall behaving in a very unnerving manner.
Hey man, it's a cat party. I almost said something very vulgar, but I decided not to. You're welcome. But you know, sometimes when it's a kitty party, you just gotta slide on in there, you know?
The young man watches, he begins to make out words in the wailing. "Don't tell Shippeitaro. Don't tell him we've been partying it up on this mountain. It'd be just awful if our one weakness was exploited. Don't you do it. Don't nobody do it." Anyway, this goes on for a while until the midnight hour is officially over and the cats all vanish. The young man officially decides that that's a tomorrow problem and goes back to sleep. The next morning, he wakes up quite hungry and a bit worn out, but thanks to the morning light, he spots a footpath he'd previously overlooked that leads him to a small village. But before he can get anything to eat, he's distracted by the sound of an extremely unhappy woman screaming and crying for help. Alarmed, he asks the apparently indifferent townsfolk what the heck is going on, and they sadly inform him that he's arrived on the occasion of an annual sacrifice to the spirit of the mountain. The unfortunate girl was selected by lot and will be sealed in a cask and placed in the very shrine the young man sheltered in for the spirit of the mountain to come and consume her. This is obviously very troubling for the young man to hear, though it does provide some context for why those cats were so jazzed. But then he remembers something and asks the locals who or what is a Shippeitaro. Confused by the apparent non sequitur in such a grim conversation, they say that Shippeitaro is the name of the dog that belongs to the local lord. The young man jets off in that direction, leaving the townspeople rather baffled, and before long he arrives at the lord's estate and frantically asks if he can borrow his dog. The lord is unsurprisingly rather confused and suspicious of this request, but the young man insists that it's a matter of life and death and it'll only be for one day, he promises. The lord reluctantly agrees and the young man takes Shippeitaro back to the village.
He just lets this random dude come and kidnap his... What is wrong with you? What is going on here? I would never, if I had a dog and somebody was like, "Hey, yo, I need your dog for mysterious purposes. It's a matter of life and death. You can't have my dog." Like, maybe I could bring my dog to wherever you need it, but you can't just take my dog. I don't have a dog, but I'm just saying.
Tells the sacrificial girl's parents to hide her in the closet for the night and secretly stows Shippeitaro in the sacrificial cask in her place. Then he heads back up the mountain and hides in the shrine until the cask is brought up, and then he and Shippeitaro wait for the plot to come and find them. Suspicious. At midnight, under the full moon, the cats reappear, this time accompanied by a huge black cat that is clearly mondo supernatural and evidently their leader. The spirit of the mountain saunters up to the cask, pops the lock, and prepares to devour the girl inside, only to be absolutely demolished when Shippeitaro pops out and glomps him instead. The young man seizes his chance and springs out, decapitating the demonic cat in one swing of his hitherto useless sword. The rest of the nightmare cats freak out and scatter with a little encouragement from Shippeitaro and the sword, and Shippeitaro and the young man return to the village at sunrise with the good news. The heroic Goodest of boys is returned to his master and honored with an annual feast in celebration of them not having to do any more blood sacrifices, and the young man is also there.
Not is also there. I mean, technically, the puppy is the one who saved the day, right? Because if it was a little girl, she would have just been like, save me, I need help, right? Like, there would have been, you would have had your little ally / distraction that you needed. But also, they could have tossed him a couple coins or some shit.
Hey, sometimes heroism is less about proving one's might and slaying the dragon and more about finding the right tool for the right job.
That's
and sometimes the right tool happens to be just the cutest little guy. Oh, yes, you are.
I love how cute Red drew him too. Like he's adorable. This shot right here with the freaking flames in his eyes, justice. I love that. I absolutely love that. Shout out to Kaibyo, The Supernatural Cats of Japan by Zach Davison. A very fun read about the many different magical cats of Japanese folklore that initially directed me to this story. Supernatural cats sound super dope. I dislike the fact that I used the word super twice in that sentence. I don't like that. Frantically Googling Shiba Inus to try and figure out a consistent way to draw Shippeitaro's dumb, adorable face. I have been waiting so long to end a song with a song from Cats, and it didn't even hit me that it would work until like 2 days ago. Is this the part where I admit that I have never, ever, ever seen Cats the musical? I've actually never seen like a lot of musicals. I'm really not a musical girl, my love of Hamilton notwithstanding. Me and musicals have just never... Okay, and I really liked High School Musical. And High School Musical 2. I didn't really care for High School Musical 3. And Camp Rock was pretty good, but I didn't like Camp Rock. The point is, okay, Broadway musicals have never been my forte. That is my point. Anywho's this was a really fun little anecdote. I can't believe that I don't remember it though, because I definitely read it. Because like I said, I read all of those books cover to cover. There was like this song, there's this story about like the Red Eaton or something. Oh my God. See, now I'm gonna have to dig the books out. Like now but I'm afraid to, because like, oh, I don't want them to fall apart. They were already like in bad shape when I got them. And then like, obviously when I got them, I was like 10 or 11. They were given to me by a family friend. And I took care of them, but like I was a kid. So I was like reading them. I was taking them everywhere. I was always pretty careful with my books, but just wear and tear, on old books. Anywho's this was a really fun story. Let me know if there's any more Overly Sarcastic Productions videos that you guys would like me to take a gander at. And other than that, don't forget to leave your reaction requests and recommendations down in the comments below. Peace out, Ho Biscuits. It's Skittenlit.